Okay. Yeah, trying another coffee. It's so long. You decided to switch from the hot to the cold. Happy Thanksgiving week, and welcome to Coffee Talk. So I know some of you will work all week this week with no days off. Some of you will get Thursday off only. Some of you will get a short week and get Thursday and Friday off. So I'm in the category of no days off. I think I'm going to get time for lunch on Thursday, and that's about it. It has been busy, 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 busy. So just to jump into a few things, tomorrow, our C20 insurance and industry relations class is going to talk about what happens when you are sued by a customer or an insurer, or you are threatened for suit by a customer or an insurer. I've never seen the insurance companies persuading consumers to enter into legal issues like I have lately, and it's a little disturbing because it's really borderline bad faith when you're pushing consumers to file suits against contracts they've signed. So we've got a lot to talk about. We've got some emails from an insurer that have gone back and forth with their customer. We've got some letters and some pleadings and some filings on both sides, consumer versus shop, insurer versus shop, and we're going to break those down and talk about, your best defense is a good offense, and that's what your paperwork is. Your contract, your letters, your emails, why we put everything in writing. So we'll get with that and go over it. But then let's jump into some of the other things that we got going on around here. So, okay. God, Aztec just keeps giving me more and more material than I know what to do with. So earlier this week, if you saw, we posted Aztec was sending out an email promising everybody $31 million worth of coverage on their basically OE equivalent crap. That proprietary database that says you don't have to follow the OE, but nobody gets a chance to look at it, to validate it, or do anything with it. So yeah, I got a hard time believing that any insurer would agree for indemnification on that little piece of evidence. If you watched the class that released last week that we also promised, which was on all of this talk over, whether you're going to use stud welders for dip repair or your welding in general, do you have to disconnect the battery? Can you use a surge protector? What do you have to take out in the weld zone and why? We had a forensic engineer whose job is to testify in cases where things have gone horribly wrong by body shops and mechanic shops and whatever. We had him weigh in on his thoughts on it. And in there, he talks about how when it's time to go to court, when things have gone wrong, the only thing that matters is what you have in written literature, right? Like what has been proven. Like a company can tell you that their stud tool or whatever works. But where is the research? Where is the documentation? Where is the proof of that? And that's what makes it hard in case for liability. That's why we always say, look, following the OE, I have a written guideline of I made the right decision based on all the evidence in front of me. I didn't just go off and make it up as I go along. And for those of you that remember things like TechCore, or you remember when State Farm's crash unit was way more active in repair procedures, and back then those guys were geniuses and they were developing things and helping General Motors and lots of OEs rethink, repairability and processes. But there's a reason those things aren't functioning really anymore, and they're not making alternative repair recommendations or any of that. And that's the world of liability. But anyway, so Aztec started making this $31 million promise to people, and we were all like, $31 million? That's such an odd number. Hey, if anybody can get any proof or any evidence or can tell us where that's coming from, we'd love to see it. And then what we eventually got was that Aztec was sharing a certificate of insurance showing their coverage, what they had as a company. And then they had wrote in an email that they promise, guarantee, and warranty indemnification if blah, blah, blah. And that just, I kind of went, how does a company that has an insurance guy at the helm let this get out and let it go? It was also brought to my attention that Opus had sent something similar around, had sent their declarations, or I'm sorry, their certificate of insurance around as well. So I thought it was a good time for us to talk about it. Now, if you are a DRP, you are familiar with COIs because you have to send them in as part of your DRP agreement to show that you have whatever minimum coverage. Sometimes even your OE certification programs will want to see a COI. And a COI verifies that you have coverage in the amounts of whatever they want. So that's your commercial general, your garage keepers, your auto policy, if you have like, parks trucks running around. You can have the umbrella, that's where Aztec's coverage came in. They had 1 million per occurrence on general liability, garage keepers, and then they had a $30 million plus personal liability umbrella protection policy that covers over. I have the greatest PLUP story ever. If you guys want to go back and Google it, we had a claim against at the time President Bill Clinton's PLUP policy over the whole Jennifer Flowers issue, and as an Arkansas policy that came into our claims office. So it was a really interesting day in claims when that happened. But so personal umbrella liability protection bonds are awesome. I tell shop owners you should have one too, just to make sure that all your general assets are protected. A lot of people think that an LLC means like nobody can touch your personal stuff, but that's not quite the case. If you have questions on that, please consult Rachel, and she runs our C20 business and financial group, and she'll talk to you about how to use insurance to protect your businesses, your home, and everything that for the worst case scenario. All right. So they had a $30 million pull-up, and so you put that together, and they're saying there's $31 million of coverage for you. Okay, not exactly true, right? Like you can't control, as the policyholder, I can't control what the insurer is or is not going to cover. We don't know what the exclusions or conditions of that policy are. For instance, if you guys go back and you look at Repair Driven News from, I want to say 2018, it might have been around then sometime, you had lots of shops sharing letters from their garage keepers, companies like Century and some of the other big names that are out there, specifically stating that if a shop did not follow the OE, that there was no coverage under their garage keepers general liability policy. So within that policy, there are exclusions, just like in your auto policy, there are exclusions for when your liability or even when your collision or comprehensive coverage applies. As the policyholder, I can't promise a third party anything. I can tell you that I'm insured. I can tell you that, hey, if something happens, you can make a claim against me or I'll make a claim or whatever, but I can't guarantee that coverage. I get specifically worried when a provider is intentionally overstepping, circling around, and avoiding OE procedures and policies. And that's what that proprietary rules engine is saying. We've decided based on our history that you don't have to do the OE here, you can do our whatever. And so online, because Aztec decided to talk to me online, I said, I don't want to see your COI. Because that's just a COI. You can't promise anybody coverage off of your COI. Just like as an auto policy, I can't promise. If I run into a claimant and hit them in the rear, I can't jump out of the car and go, I promise my insurance company is going to pay you $50,000 because that's the coverage I have. I can't do that as a policyholder, right? Same thing applies. So what I asked was, what I'd love to see is a letter from your insurer. So whoever has the general liability and the PLUP, a letter that they have wrote you that says you have explained to them your proprietary database and that it overrides OE written procedure and that they agree that there will be coverage for that. I want to see that. And if you'll show us that, then I may get off your case a little bit, right? But you can't send shops a COI and tell them that that's a guarantee of $31 million of coverage. And that's not just Aztec, that's Opus, that's AirPro, that's your glass guy. You should definitely, anybody you're subletting to, be asking for a certificate of insurance because it just proves that they're a legit business that understands risk. You'll hear Mike Anderson, Mark Olson, myself, Billy, Larry, you'll hear us talk about all of these. We call them clown sultans that have come into the industry that just think, hey, you know what? I used to have a body shop and I kind of think I know what I'm doing. I'm going to start a business. But they have no errors and omissions insurance. They have no liability insurance. For some of my clients, I have to cover up to 20 million. So I kind of chuckled at this $30 million. I'm like, I got $20 million and I don't technically turn wrenches. I just make videos and review products and do those kind of things. But for some of those clients, they have a requirement level that we have to cover. And Mark has one and Mike Anderson has one and Larry has one. We all have these liabilities. If we consult somebody and something goes horribly wrong, or we give you bad advice or whatever, you need to know that we've got some coverage that helps out for our mistakes if we cause harm to your business. So anybody you're working with, 20 group, a a glass company, whatever, if they're coming and going from your property, if they're offering you any advice or consultation, make sure that they have insurance. So getting a COI is a great baseline for business, right? But it by no means guarantees or warranties that there will be coverage if there is a loss. So be careful about those. I found that very interesting and a little concerning that people were trying to pass COIs off to shops as guarantees and warranties. That was a new one for me, right? So, all right, let's look at the next thing that we've got going on here. I am really pleased and happy to say that SmartWrite is up and running on Crytek, and you are now able to use it because here's the deal. We talked about things are getting, the claim count will continue to go down. Repairables available in the market will decrease. So because total losses will increase. So all of us are going to be trying to make technically more money because cost of labor and cost of everything gets more expensive. We're going to be trying to make more money than we are now on less cars than we have now. So if you're doing 100 cars a month, you better get ready to do 50. If you're doing 200 cars a month, you better get ready to do 100 of those. And so we're all going to be looking at ways to expand profitability. Now, some good news is that may help us with our human resource capital issue, like available human bodies in the shop to turn wrenches. So there are a lot of things in the insurance industry I don't necessarily have to have a human body for, and artificial intelligence and some things may help with staffing issues on that side of the fence. But in the body shop, there's still a lot of wrench turning and photo taking and things that have to happen that require a human. But you can't staff the way you do now. So every shop across the country really has to start thinking about re-envisioning the body shop. If we're honest, the thing still looks the same way it's looked in the last, 60, 70 years. We still have the same job titles. People still do basically the same job roles. And some of the only things that have changed is that we have computerized estimating versus handwriting. But for the most part, you walk into a shop now and it's structured really the same way it was structured 20, 30 years ago. That has to completely evolve. And one of the things that can evolve is the way that you approach estimating. Do I need 4 or 5 estimators in the front office and maybe 2 in the back that are blueprinting? The answer is no. There's not a lot of value in the way that we used to do estimating, particularly even in the DRPs, right? You blueprinted, you fully torn down a car, you wrote a fantastic sheet, you sent it up, and you were off and running. Now, even in that environment, you're still facing multiple supplements, change requests, all these kind of things. So if we have this shrinking human capital that wants an increasing pay rate, so cost of labor is higher. I haven't met an estimator this year that doesn't think they're worth $150,000 a year. We're going to have limited availability of that human capital. So some things will begin to be outsourced. And quite honestly, the first estimate can be outsourced. We know through research, and that's not just mine. I did it again during COVID. I wanted to spend some more time with it. But back when I was with the insurer, we researched photo-based estimating back then. We were doing it on Polaroids. I mean, well before there was a Snapsheet or whatever. You can get 80% accurate being a good estimator working off photos. A really good estimator like Larry, don't tell him I said good things about him, can get even more than 80% accurate off photos. But you can get a really good outsource that stuff. Those first estimates, all of that stuff that's drawing down your human capital or taking up their time, you can do that through outsourcing it. And that's what SmartWrite is for. You can take anybody in the shop. They don't have to know anything about a car. We've worked with Derek for over the last solid year. I mean, we've been on this for 1 year. We thought this was going to be like a 3-4 month launch project, and we've been on it for a year. Billy Valali's been in here on this thing, and his whole entire team of adjusters, making this portal be as smooth as possible. So you would go in here. A standard estimate is $250. We're not doing this $99 stuff. These are not cheap estimates written by unexperienced estimators. These are experienced estimators. If you want an OE certified appraisal, we have OE certified estimators. Now, when you get into the Europeans or you get into that, you're going to get a Larry estimate, right? It's going to be, or if we have exotic or specialty, if you need a motorhome written, you need a combine written, you need a vehicle that's not in the database, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, whatever. We can write those, and we have all kinds of levels for that. And I promise you that it is way cheaper to pay to have an estimate done and get it back. It comes back into your system. You get to import it. This isn't something you got to rekey. We're not asking you for your shop's log on into your own estimating system. We don't need to have that. You get to keep autonomy and security on that, which I will tell you there's an SIU issue on sharing your login IDs for your estimating systems with third parties. I got a call on that this week. No, I'm sorry, we're in Monday. Last week I got a call on that. And as we talked through it with the SIU department, I was like, holy crap, that's a problem, isn't it? And hadn't even really thought of what the potential issues with sharing your shop's logon was, but you don't have to do that with this. We've ran the numbers. It seems like it's a lot of money, but it ends up being way cheaper than having someone on staff that you're paying commission, because we found out 3 to 5% of what they write, but what they write is 60 to 70% deficient. So you're paying for them to be wrong half the time. And then they're not available for negotiating or some other things. So SmartRide is up and running. You can just get to it through the crytech.com website, and you can click into SmartRide, but then also there's a whole suite of things. Instant DV is here as well. So you can, if you have a customer that's been hit, it's third party claim, unless you're in the state of Georgia, first and third party. You can direct them to here and they can get a DV report for $50. It's quick and it's easy. It's factually based. It's a really slick program. We've had to test it a couple of times to prove it a little bit further. Some insurers have balked and said, I don't want to pay it. And it always comes back being actually cheaper if they would have taken the DV report and not asked us to prove it. There's the audit tool that you can run your software, you can run everything through and kind of look at what's the differences between your estimate and maybe the insurers. And then total loss, if you do nothing else, stop writing your own total losses. So that's a great key. You're making your estimator spend hours writing something that for the most of you, specifically on DRP, you're not going to get paid on. You don't get to charge storage or fees or all of those other things. So you might as well let someone else deal with that nightmare so that your in-shop estimators are focusing on the cars that are going to make you money. I want their time and attention on the things that will bring us the maximum profit that we can have. That's how we make money, right? So whatever you do to make money, that's where you want your human capital, those human resources, those experienced people in your shop. You want them spending time and energy doing that. And to me, the first estimate, we're going to have 2 or 3 supplements. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to do all of that. I don't want them on that. And I definitely don't want them on total losses. So be thinking about how you reorganize the administrative part of your facility. And those are my CSAs, my porters, my estimators, my blueprinters, if I have those in the back, and that we figure out what we need and what we can outsource and how we can make ourselves better. That brings up the next part of, I got a lot of questions last week, and I just need to remind everybody, an estimating system is not for body shops. CCC, Mitchell, Auditex, whatever that is, that stuff was never intended for you. It wasn't written for you. It doesn't work for you. Estimating systems are based on parts, right? It's got to have a part that associates with it, that gives it a labor time or gives it a refinish time. Which means if you are only using the estimating system to come up with your amount owed or your repair plan, you're going to be at least 50% wrong all of the time. And so as we're doing these estimate audits, we had one the other day that was 320% wrong. And when I go back and I look at it and I talk to the estimator, I find that they're using the estimating system as like a guide, right? They pull up the groups and they just go through the groups and they go, well, do I need that? Do I need that? Doing that? And in their mind, by hitting all of the groups, they're being thorough in everything that they're doing. So no, there are a ton of things that you have to fix a car that have nothing to do with the parts or whatever. And sometimes that's driving the vehicle in, it's washing it off, it's doing all these things. So stop using estimating systems as a guide to how you envision and write the estimate. You will find that you are always wrong. The next thing that we need to talk about is what I like to call the OE equivalent repair. So we got a lot of people giving a lot of, me included, we give a lot of crap to the Aztecs of the world that come up and say that it's an OE equivalent scan or whatever. In those cases, okay, let's just be honest. You can't stand in front of an insurer holding an aftermarket scan tool and think that you are doing a good repair or have the balls to ask for procedures or get mad when you're not paid OE procedures, right? It's either OE or it's not, and you're either gonna get OE procedures and get paid for them, or you're not. You don't get to have it one way and another one it's something else, right? So it just doesn't work that way. You've got to figure all of that out. So stop the double talk and stop thinking that you can get away with it over here because those targets are cheaper, or this guy that I'm subletting to is cheaper. Like, it's OE or it's not. Stop thinking equivalent. It doesn't work that way. All right, last thing. Melanie is going to be running some specials all through Christmas, and I'm pretty pissed off about them because I let her pick them, and they're some of our best products, and she's marking them down to half price or free. But be on the lookout over the next 30 days for what her 12 days of Christmas specials are going to be. And I would really love it if you just would not buy them so that after the first of the year, I can mark them up, because a lot of things like our legal and negotiation and insurance claims and all that stuff are going to become more popular, and I'd like to make more money on them. But you'll have a chance in December. For those that are not in our C20 group, you have a chance to also that and get 2 months free. So you'll be able to cheat me out of another 2 months for the end of the year. But anyway, happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you guys all back next week.